ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Drafted Pages podcast. If you're watching online, you might notice a little bit of a different setup today, and that's because I have the pleasure of having one of my good friends here in Dallas, Cristina, join me for today's podcast and share a little bit about her faith, a little bit about her time here in Dallas, and just some things that she wants to talk about. So, Cristina, why don't you introduce yourself and
Okay. Hi, I'm Cristina. I've been born and raised here in Dallas. Been living here for 23 years. Love it. I work in real estate full time. I do social media as well. Selling houses, posting is kind of the name of the game. I serve at Watermark. I've been going to the Porch for about 5 years. And yeah, I'm a big country dancing fan. So that's kind of what I do in my free time. But yeah, a little bit about me.
That's actually how Cristina and I kind of became friends, was country dancing here in Dallas.
Which you haven't gone back.
I haven't. It's been a while.
Next Thursday.
And I owe you. I owe you. For those of you who don't know, country dancing, two-stepping is pretty popular here in Texas. And I'd never done anything like that before. And then Cristina has been an amazing coach, has taught me all that I know, which is only a few moves, but I've been out of the game for a couple months.
It's better than nothing.
True.
It's literally better than nothing. I think you've improved since you've moved to Dallas. Like, you've improved your dancing game, your two-stepping. It's gone well.
Well, thank you. It's all your coaching.
I know. We got to start watching some of those TikToks and like actually practice some of the new moves, but we'll get through it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll get back on that grind here come the summertime before it all leaves. But really, Cristina, one of the things I really admire about you is your walk with God. As a young Christian woman, I know that can be super challenging in today's age, and I think you just have an amazing testimony, and definitely would love for you to share as much as you're comfortable with about, how you kind of started your walk with God, what kind of like drew you into that, and kind of along the journey how you've been able to grow in that over the past couple of years.
Oh God, yeah. Thank you. I don't think that Christianity or like my walk with the Lord or any of like my relationship with the Lord was just kind of on accident. I come from a family of non-believers. So they pertain to Catholicism. So growing up, a lot of that kind of looked like me going to mass on Sundays. I did my first communion. I did the baptism. I did the confirmation. But all of those like acts were paid for. So truthfully, like they were paid for through money because I never had time to go. So my parents would pay the people at the church, the pastors, whatever you want to call them. And that was just like, because of my works, like that's kind of how salvation came to be in Catholicism. So growing up, it was just kind of like very different. I didn't really know the Lord. Like there wasn't a Bible kind of just like hanging around in the living room or any of that. So I just didn't know the Lord. But it was kind of funny. Whenever my parents got divorced at a young age, so I was 4, I ended up growing up with my mom. My sister lived with my dad. So it's just like kind of house divided. And that's like kind of how I share my story all the time. It's like, I think separation was probably like just like the essence, the foundation of my like upbringing. It's just like, I always knew that like I was going to go every weekend to see my dad and then I'd be home. But like the sense of isolation was always there. So whenever I just kind of like wanted to know the Lord, that didn't really come to be until I was 12. So I hung out with like my friends in middle school, and it was just like where I like really like flourished, where I really really loved to like thrive was with other people and like with friendships. So one of my best friends in 6th grade took me to one of her like really really small like Southern Baptist church in Lucas, which is like 10 minutes away from where I grew up. Got saved, started my walk with the Lord, and like the rest was kind of history. Like I started going deep into like my relationship with the Lord. I started going to co-ed Bible studies, serving, like all the little check marks done. Like they were there. They were 100% taken care of. And then afterwards, like my family kind of resented my walk with the Lord because I was like, in their mindset, it's like, oh, you're going to church because you want to like get brainwashed. You want to go to church because you want new friendships, or you want to go to church because you want to give money to other places rather than like yourself. And I was like, as a young woman, I was like, maybe, like, I don't know. I was like, honestly, I was like, you're probably right. And my dad was like, you're like bowing down to the demons. I was like, okay, whatever. So that was really interesting conversation whenever I started speaking to my family about my faith. They're like, "Why do you do that? Like, why do you go to church? Why do you like do all this stuff?" And I was like, I think it's just like I was so hungry and truthfully like starving for a relationship or an intimacy with something different than like I don't know, just like friendships or my family and all that stuff. Like I truly just longed for a missing puzzle piece. And so like having that and going to different churches and like trying to figure out like where to serve, where I really like I don't know. I just kind of like where I guess I like fit in, quote unquote. I was just like, yeah, this is kind of what it's going to be like. And so like just going from like church to church for a season and then fully getting planted and rooted in the church that I used to go to before Watermark was really cool. They had a completely different teaching style, but during that time, I would say that my family, I think, finally came to see like, oh, like I can see why you do that. And it's not because like I guess I was happier, like things just made sense. I think it was more because like in their sight they're like she's not doing drugs, she's not like doing the sins of the world, like she's not partying, she's not doing all that stuff, like she's just like fully going like head on first for church. And I was like, yeah. So then just afterwards it's just been like kind of the highs and lows. Like we go through our sin battles, we struggle, we go through temptation. Like there's just I'm a really broken person, a really broken world that's in desperate need of a savior every single day. And I think that just has really been like my poster board kind of walking with the Lord. It's been still some like resentment towards my family, and not in the sense of like they did me wrong, but they just haven't understood. And that's not because I haven't like show them the love of the Lord or I haven't like shared the gospel with them. I think the Lord just hasn't truly like moved in their hearts the way that I'd like them to, kind of thing. And so it's been a really interesting journey, just like walking with the Lord and like having that side of the aspect of like my family might someday come to the Lord, but then a part of me is like, you can only do so much. You can only lead a horse to water. You just can't force it to drink, kind of thing. But yeah, no, it was really, really awesome. Just like continuously still like walking with the Lord. And like I say all the time, like my mom's story was probably like the highlight, not necessarily the highlight, but I think it was like the most beautiful valley that I've ever been through because of the way that like she came to know the Lord after 54 years. And I'm like, oh, literally like, holy crap. Like, how does that even happen? But it's just like the Lord is good and I'm not. And like, that's the beauty of like being so like focused into like the gospel, like being rooted in like church and community, but also too just like taking a step back and realizing that this life will pass by way faster than we think, and like having the mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to continue to like do this and like performance, but it's like, no, like the Lord has already worked that. Like Jeremiah 29:11 speaks about it a lot. But yeah, I think that I had just like fully grasped onto the idea of like, oh, I need to start doing this, but then I just like seriously like let go, let God kind of thing. And the Lord just did that. And I was like, wow, like shame on me for ever doubting him. Like shame on me. I will never, ever, ever try to do that, because it's just like he's up there laughing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, got it. So yeah, no, it's been really, really awesome just walking with the Lord and just like being able to see like the beauty and the fruition of like friendships have been really, really sweet. Just like my entire life. My family still doesn't fully know, like they know where I am serving at the Porch. They know where I am on Sundays. They know like my community group, and they're like, they've never doubted my playmates on my playground. They've never doubted like who I hang out with, or they're just like, they're more like, why aren't you doing why aren't you doing the bad things of this world? And it's like, I am actually, like I'm a really I'm a really bad sinner, but it's not because of like performance. It's because like the grace of God, and like that's truly like what's been highlighted. So it's been really interesting just like walking and seeing how like the Lord kind of works in one's heart. Like, and that's just like my story, but there's like 7 billion people on this world, and not all of them know the Lord, but a lot of them do. And so it's been just kind of cool seeing the way that God works, at least in me specifically, and many people around the world too. So
Yeah, you touched on a lot there, and thank you for being so open to share a lot about that. The one thing that I can't necessarily relate to, but I think is really powerful, is the fact that you have kept your faith and walk with God, and how important that is to you, even though your family isn't as supportive or as in touch with faith as you would hope them to be, right?
Yeah.
How have you been able to manage that? I mean, you mentioned leading the horse to the water. You can't force them to drink, right? How have you been able to manage that, and how do you think it's kind of shifted the way you interact with other people in your life who may not be as strong of believers or maybe just don't even care about God at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, at least for me personally, what I've done is every time that the conversations come up where we're, let's say it's Thanksgiving dinner and the faith conversation comes up, I truthfully, I'm like, dear Lord, and I start praying because I'm like, I'm going to start saying some things that are probably not going to be very nice, and not in the sense of like I want to create chaos, but not nice in the way of like there might be some convictions, there might be something that's going to be like, well, I'm like living like this, do you think that I'm going to go to hell? And it's like, that's not kind of up to me. um so I've always just kind of like prayed before that. And like growing up, I think what I've noticed is that you just have to plant seeds like wherever you go, like in certain conversations, like you don't have to water it. I'm sorry, once you plant the seed of like the gospel is, like who the gospel, like what the gospel is, who the Lord is, how a life with like the Lord looks like, you just continue to water it. And so that just comes with conversations as like life kind of goes on. I had a conversation 2016 that really like just kind of like shifted my, for example, my sister's heart. She really started to like realize what I was doing with this whole like Christianity thing and serving. And so from then on, it's 2023, so it's been what, 7 years or so. It's just I've just constantly been watering. She knows what I'm doing on Tuesday nights, like I said, or Sundays, or just like hanging out with my friends or doing Bible studies. It's just constantly watering like the conversation until it truly does blossom and the Lord really truly does move. But it's been a interesting conversation, like from then on, just kind of like figuring out, because everyone's different. Like no one's going to just accept it or like respond the same. But what they are going to do is like at least listen. And so if they can at least hear and you can articulate it well to the other person, they can take it however they want to. But again, like we are not God and we cannot do anything else than what we are truly like given the gifts to go ahead and do. And I forgot the second part of your question.
No, it's just how that area, right, of managing your family and faith has kind of allowed you to work in other people, whether it be friends or coworkers or people who are on the same fence about believing in God and don't really, buy into it all the way, or maybe just aren't believers at all.
Yeah.
Like, how do you handle those conversations with people?
Yeah, with unbelievers and still like staying like very consistent in my faith, what I've learned, and it's just about knowing like your spiritual gifts and like what you're gifted in. If you just open up the book of like First Corinthians like 12, like that is the book of love, right? Like love is patient, love is kind, love is does not envy, does not boast. Like that's just the entire passage. But I think what it's always misguided is that we don't really pay attention to First Corinthians 11, which talks about spiritual gifts. And so like knowing your spiritual gifts of like, for me, like one of them is encouragement, one of them is discipleship, conviction, like discernment. There are so many things, but you use your spiritual gifts to love on other people well. And so don't ever like overlook, at least that's just kind of like what I've taught myself, is like I cannot continue to like overlook like what I'm gifted in to shift like perspective. And so with people who do struggle with like not believing or just haven't been fully like able to know the Lord, you just have to share the gospel first. That's like key number one, and everything else you just kind of like unpack. It's just like, hey, did you know Jesus Christ died for his son Jesus to die on the cross for you? And then you just dive into the conversation, because more often than not, those people are going to have more questions than you're going to have to say. And so it's like almost like shifting the conversation completely and answering those questions first so they're fully understood. And then you impact them with the truth of like what's said in the Bible. So yeah, it's been kind of interesting. Like there's always constant conversations where you just kind of figure out, like, you almost have to read the person before you say like what you're going to say. So yeah.
I love that. I love leading with the gospel first, making that the priority, and then kind of handling it from there. One thing I would like to know from your side is how do you start that? How do you have the courage to engage with people about the gospel? because that can be a daunting task.
Yeah.
I mean, we go to church, we're around it a lot, we're around other believers, and it's very easy to have these conversations just come up in daily conversation about whatever we're doing. But when we're talking to non-believers and, they're talking about their night out on Saturday night, or, what their plans are for the coming weekend, or, a lot of things that just wouldn't align with how we kind of live our lives. Like, how do you bring up God in that conversation, or even just in general?
Yeah, I think that's a hard one. Often I have that issue with my coworkers all the time, or just like certain conversations at the porch, or like just. But the first question that I ask is like, what do you think about throughout the day? Like, what's the first thing you think about whenever you wake up? And I've seen that just that simple question like truly open up so much conversation, because people like want to share what's on their heart. Whenever I wake up, like I pray to God. I like think about what I'm gonna wear for the day, what I'm gonna eat, like what I'm it's just like the craziness, and I'm
That's
like,
so good.
no, yeah, literally. But if you start with like, what do you think about? Super, super basic, super bland, but it's like, what anxieties, or what like intrusive thoughts, or what's taken captive of their mind, and then you just kind of shift that conversation. It's like, let's say I'm an unbeliever and you ask me, what do you do throughout the day? Or like, what do you think about throughout the day? I don't know. Think about getting drunk, think about smoking weed, think about getting angry at my husband, or like whatever, right? Like it could be any conversation. But whenever you start with something like that, and like let's say I have a really heavy heart, or I don't believe in the Lord, I say, yeah, that's what I'm like. Okay, great. Well, do you believe? Do you pray? Do you like how do you how do you refresh your like mind? How do you refresh yourself? How do you, I don't know, just like, do you believe in a higher power? Like, what does that look like for you? And that's just how the gospel, like faith conversations come to me. And that has been something that has really shown, at least to myself, like it's just revealed that people are willing to open up conversation when you ask questions about themselves, rather than questions about like, do you know who God is? Like, yes, that's really great question, but that can come off really, really strong. Whereas to you do something more authentic and more natural, people find a leeway to just completely open up about themselves. And that's something that I've kind of like almost seen the fruition come to, but it's taken time. And that's like a hard question to ask. It's like, do you think you're going to go to heaven? Like, that's kind of like a loaded question. And it's like, well, I'm not going to hell, so I'm going somewhere, right? And it's like, oh gosh. But yeah, just like a simple question like that has really changed, and like, I don't know, just like driven conversations elsewhere than other things that's like totally not true.
Yeah, it's almost like you're a salesman for the kingdom,
Yeah.
right? And you're not gonna approach somebody asking them like, "Hey, do you want to like buy your ticket to heaven?" It's like you got to understand your customer first, understand their journey, where they're coming from, where they're at in their walk with faith. Everybody's along a different spectrum most of their life. And yeah, I think that's really cool. What do you think about when you wake up? That's a great question.
It's just the first, like, what do you think about? What's the first thing you think about when you wake up?
Why is my alarm going off at 4:30 in the morning?
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. But second thought.
Well, probably gotta brush my teeth. I don't know. I'm a guy. It's very basic.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's like guys minister different to guys, whereas to girls minister different to girls.
Yeah.
So how do you share the gospel?
That's a great question. I constantly try to ask people who I come in contact with, whether it's someone who I kind of know, but preferably strangers, whether it's a cashier. And this is actually from one of the preachings at Watermark a couple months ago, is like how to share the gospel with other people. And you just ask if there's anything you can pray for them for.
Yeah.
Right. And recently I was on a trip to Orlando. And I think it was when I was coming from Philadelphia to Orlando. And my flight had gotten delayed, so I was stuck in the airport for a while. And I was sitting at the bar, and the bartender had a tattoo. And I asked her what her tattoo was. And I honestly can't tell you what the actual tattoo was, what it said. But she said it was in honor of her son. And he had died, I think it was like 12 years ago to the day. Yesterday is when she said, or tomorrow or something like that. And like everyone around us just immediately, our hearts sunk. Like you just get that feeling like, ugh,
Yeah.
like you can just tell on her face
You
that
just
she,
feel the
like
pain.
she's like not doing okay.
Yeah.
And time went by, and I like immediately got this like feeling inside. I'm like, where it was like God telling you, pray for her, like pray for her right now in front of everybody. And I
Yeah.
just like, she kept walking back and forth, like help,
Bartending.
yeah, bartending, helping other people. She kept coming back over, and I kept being hesitant, right? And then I finally asked her, I was like, excuse me, like what's your name? And she said Leanne. I'm like, Leanne, I'm a really big believer in prayer and the power behind it,
Mhm.
and I have this feeling right now to pray for you, and if you don't mind, I would love the opportunity just to
Yeah.
pray for you right now. And she said sure. So I put my hand out over her and just prayed that God give her the strength whenever she's struggling, that his power can heal, and that he's going to continue to use her in this position,
Right.
interacting with tons of strangers every single day at a bartender in an airport,
Right.
and that her story is going to help impact other people,
Yeah.
because you can see the strength that she has
Yeah.
through it already, and it's been so long, and that she'll be reunited with him in heaven, and that
Right.
he's already so proud of her, and there's so much good that's going to come from this.
Mhm.
And even when it's not great, that's when she needs to pray and rely on God
Right.
to help her get through it. And so just randomly praying for
Yeah.
people any way I can. Usually that strikes up a conversation with either the person that you're with. It's
Mhm.
like, well, thank you, and then you get their name, and then you
Right.
I try to continue to pray for them at least like another week.
Mm.
Just whatever it was that they asked me to pray for. And yeah, because I just believe in it.
Yeah.
It's like you said, like the power of God is amazing.
Right.
And
Well, it's funny that you like bring up like being hesitant. Like, why do you feel like you're hesitant? From a guy's perspective, and I'll
yeah,
share mine.
I mean, I just think we're always scared of being judged. We're scared to talk to other people
Yeah.
in general. We're scared how people might react, how they might think. We're scared to have people say no,
Right.
right? And I think that's always initially why I get scared. What about you?
Well, 'cause it's like it's fear of rejection, right?
Yeah.
So like we live in a free being in like living in America, you have like full free range to do whatever, and that I mean I'm guilty here, right? But yeah, we fear rejection so much, but like shouldn't we also like fear the Lord of like who he is as well too, and like having those like conversations? It's like there are people that will like truthfully get killed, they will get slaughtered, they will get murdered for believing in something other than what their religion is across nations.
Wow.
And so we're here at an let's say you didn't share the gospel, let's say you didn't pray, you're in an airport in America in a first world country where you can share that wholeheartedly and freely, and nothing will happen to you at the end
Yeah.
of the day. You will come home, you'll go to bed, and you'll go to work the next morning, and you'll still like continue to live your life. But people across nations will literally die for even trying to like speak about something else. And it's like, I think at least here in like where we live, and like specifically we could talk about Dallas, it's like what I've read too is like Dallas is known to be one of the top cities for believers, but also like just young adults in general.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is that like freedom and there is that like opportunity to go ahead and share the gospel in other places, not only just like in public, but to the unbelievers, and it's like, why aren't we doing it more often? Because isn't like our goal at the end of the day like this life is great, right? Like we have great things, and like the Lord blesses us in many different ways, and we have the opportunity to go to church. Like the Lord just makes so many beautiful paths for us to go and like truly walk on, that it would be silly that like what's been in my mind a lot, it's like nothing matters, and not in the sense of like this life doesn't matter, like whatever, but it's like more in the sense of like we're stressing about something for 5 minutes that probably is going to make the most, like it won't matter in 5 years. So it's like, why do we stress about it for 5 minutes and then continue to stress on it and stress on it, and then just like add this like added stress? And then that's kind of like the same, it goes hand in hand with being hesitant. Like you're hesitant for like 5 minutes, and then you have a great conversation, or it doesn't go right. Like it can go both ways. Like you can have a great conversation, you share the gospel, they get saved, amazing, now you have another brother or sister in Christ in heaven. But like let's say you do have that like being hesitant over and over again, there are so many missed opportunities that we missed out on because we're fearful of like what's going to come, or like how the conversation is going to go. And it's just interesting because it's like we're gifted with so much that we are still just like so scared of like someone else will do it, like someone else will take care of it. Like that's just how we think.
Yeah.
But why? Like that shouldn't be Like, that shouldn't be a good reason of like why we're not sharing. I think it'd be more of like, oh, we shouldn't share the gospel, or we shouldn't do that if you're like physically incapable, or if you're like, I don't know, like if there is some practical reason. But if it's because of something internal, then you have an internal problem that needs to be addressed, and go like externally fix that by like preaching the gospel elsewhere to go make disciples. Because you'd be missing out on we would all be missing out on a really great opportunity to share the gospel over and over again. But it's like this, like being hesitant, being like fearful of rejection, just being like in our heads, being judged. If you didn't share, if you didn't pray for the girl at the airport, the bartender, let's say you prayed with her, probably someone judged you, honestly. Probably someone was like, oh my gosh, like probably. Another Christian.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Are you kidding me?
Yep.
They're like, oh my gosh, he's probably like Mormon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you never know. And it's like, they went home that night and probably didn't think about that. Or they hopped on their plane and they didn't think about that. Mm-hmm. They're just, because we're self-centered people and we're selfish, that we don't care of anything else but ourselves. But like, this is not about ourselves. This is about the Lord. And like the grand scheme of things, that's what matters, not this. Like, nothing matters here, because it's like, what's the end goal? It's heaven.
So
eternity.
True.
Yeah.
That's so well said. I think there's a lot to take out of that, but the biggest thing is like being more fearful of God than other people, and that, you know, as believers, our job is to spread the message every way we can using our spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
To do that, and I think that's something we can all take from this is to use the gifts that God's given us to spread the message.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome. Getting deep here today. I like it. So you mentioned the Porch a couple times.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, the Porch is a youth-based ministry. Young adults.
Because we're not in our youth. We're young
right.
adults.
Young adults-based ministry, basically for 20 to 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday night here in Dallas. They also live stream it. It's at the same location where Watermark is, where Cristina and I go for Sunday service. I went a lot in the fall. Mm-hmm. It's phenomenal preaching. I try to watch the episodes when I can't go and live and in person on Tuesdays. But it's just great messaging for young Christians, or even young adults who aren't believers, right? Yep, just aren't believers at all. They talk a lot about real struggles that people deal with in the world, and how we can use our faith, how God, you know, the gospel, and how it relates to a lot of the things that go on nowadays. And they just phenomenal preaching there. But you mentioned serving there.
Yeah.
How has that been?
Oh my gosh. Porch. Like, first of all, let me just tell you what the Porch stands for, because I asked that question. I was like, what does that mean? Like, why do we call it the Porch? Like, you'd think of like the meaning. So the Porch founded its name because whenever you go into a house, you go onto the porch first, right? And so the porch is kind of like the stepping ground before getting fully ministered into like the big church, because it's not a church, it's a ministry. And so whenever you go into Watermark itself, the porch is like that stepping stone, like kind of like that's kind of where we are. And then going deeper, it's like you go into the house of the Lord, which is on Sundays.
Wow.
So that's really interesting.
Awesome.
And so there's 4 teams on the porch, right? There is sidewalk. So essentially that team does the prayer ministry. So whenever the message is over on Tuesday nights, they have a ministry, or the team up front, that prays for people who need prayer, or they go out and they just find the one. And the Porch is really big on finding the one. So you go out, you find someone that's sitting alone, you find someone that just, I don't know, where the Lord is kind of like tugging on your heart, like go speak to them, go like do something. So that's kind of like what the team looks like. So we have sidewalk, you have curbside. Curbside is like parking lot people who do welcome people into the porch, the doors, the front desk, the welcome desk, and the merchandise. And then you have so you have sidewalk, you have curbside, you have TNS, which stands for Team Next Steps, which is where I serve. Best team. If my porch team is watching, it's the best team.
Shameless plug right there.
No, it's really awesome. We just get people plugged into the Watermark. So kind of what's my next step after going to the porch? Like, where should I go? So we get people plugged into the membership class, the community group class, answering questions, just what Watermark is about, and the porch specifically. And then we have 2 more, but I'm blanking on the other one. We have curbside, sidewalk, next steps, and welcome at. They sell merch as well too, and they kind of like hone down our solo section. So the Porch is about 3,000 young adults, and the solo section is kind of for all those people who come alone, don't know who to sit with, so you kind of sit them all together so they all become friends. So it's like the lonely solo section, but it's like a lot of people come from out of town or they just don't know anyone. It's like, dude, I need to just make a friend tonight. They like 9 out of 10 times they get plugged in with someone else. And then we have our landscape team, which is our like creative department team. So social media, photography, music, lights, X, Y, and Z, that's all there. So those 5 teams are really awesome. So you got, think about it, it's like the house, right? So you have your curbside, you have your sidewalk, you have your next steps, your welcome mat, and then your landscape team. All
look at that.
Yeah.
So creative.
Isn't that awesome? I asked Dave and Marvin at the time, I was like, what's the porch? Like, and then you look at the porch light is the logo.
Yeah.
Crazy, right? So anyway, I've been serving there for a year. Love it. What's really beautiful about serving at the Porch and like how that's looked like is like, first of all, it's a big commitment. It's every Tuesday from 6 to 10, and you carve out like basically your Tuesday. Most, if not all, like young adults who serve at the Porch work full-time jobs, and so we get off at like 5. You work your 9 to 5, whatever, and then you go and serve for 4 hours. You commit for a year at least, and so I've been doing it for a year, and I'm still planning on doing so for at least the near future. But yeah, it's been great. Like just serving there, you get plugged in with specifically my team. We just have community outreaches all the time, and we just like build a lot of like community. And as like basic as it sounds, it's just like really beautiful friendships that you probably wouldn't find elsewhere, unless you like take that step over, right? And so like serving at the Porch, I think has been really sweet. I minister to a lot of like young adult women, and that's just the same thing for guys. Like they minister into the guys, and I would say that I think my faith has not, obviously like it's gotten stronger over the years and whatnot, but I think it's gotten deeper just serving at the Porch. Not because it's like, oh, it's great, like I wear a badge and a t-shirt and I have like the handy dandy little logo and I can answer your questions, which is great and everything, but it's gotten deeper because of the conversations that I've had. A lot of these like young adult women specifically, like that's just who I minister to, like have really, really heavy questions, conversations, struggles, anxieties, thoughts. Like they just have some really heavy burdens that just like need to be laid down at the feet of the Lord. And so I honestly would say that some of like my best friends or like my friends right now have come from the Porch, and not because like I'm just like, oh, I'll just take one in. Like I have room, but like, I mean, that's kind of how I am. I'm like, oh, I have extra card, like I have extra space.
Right. You got room for them, right? You'll be their shepherd for the night.
That's what I'm saying. And so I just like, it's just crazy. Like, yeah, it's just really insane. The conversations that you have end up being like, one of them is like mind transformating. Why can't I say that word?
Transformation?
Transformation. No, but with the ing at the end. Transformating.
I'm bad with words over 3 syllables. You're talking to the wrong person.
Set the communications major. Get out.
Got me. Caught red-handed, guys.
No, but it's just been some really, really awesome conversations that you have with like just ministering, and not only just like young adult women, but just overall, you just see it happen every Tuesday night. And so serving at the Porch, you go in, put on your badge, you meet up with your team, you go into the service, and then afterwards, like specifically my team is like find the one, like whoever that looks like, go and find them. It's like if I see like a guy sitting alone and he's bawling, I call up one of my Porch guys like, hey, can you come minister to this guy? Vice versa, flip the tables around. I do that for a girl if he ever sees like a girl sitting alone. At the end of the night though, we do everything like with prayer, and that's something that Watermark has done really, really well. Sometimes, well, I'll say it like once a month, every single team goes into the prayer room. And so during the service, they won't sit during the service. They'll pray during the service for the service, if that makes sense. So it's not,
I love that.
It's not what's shifted. It's like, it's not a ministry that prays. It's a praying ministry. And so we are actively on Tuesday nights. There is people in the chapel will pray for an hour and a half for the message, during the message, for the people to have convictions, to have like a shift of heart, or just like to be still. Like, and it's something where we went on a Tuesday night and I was like, oh God, I don't want to go. Like I did not, I wanted to listen to the message, to be honest. JP was preaching and I love him. And I was like, oh, I really want to listen to it. But I went in there for an hour and a half and I was like, God, you got me. Like I should have just like been open-minded about it and just like gone in, because it was awesome. Like everyone prays openly. Like it's not even just a prayer of like, hey, I pray that the porch goes well, but it's like we started praying for specific people. Like I prayed for a friend, a guy prayed for his guy friend, and it was just like that specific person. And I think that's so intimate and so beautiful. But yeah, just like in hindsight, Porch has been a really awesome ministry. And like if you do live in Dallas and you don't go, like you're missing out. Like truthfully, I know that you're busy on Tuesdays sometimes, but
unfortunately
you got to get that schedule shifted. So yeah, Porch is honestly, if you're in Dallas or anywhere, like live stream it, get plugged in. It's free to fully go in, so like if you have that leeway, go. So
yeah, certainly. Speaking of things to do in Dallas, since you're a native, I wanted to know, what is one restaurant that if someone was coming into town for and you would take them to, what is one restaurant that they have to try?
Oh my gosh, I love North Italia.
I don't think I've
Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, so it's like an Italian cuisine, whatever.
Italian cuisine in Dallas. Interesting.
There is one in downtown, and then there is one in Legacy West. Oh my gosh, I just like dream about that pasta. Honestly, I think I need to go sometime this week. But it is so good. Like living in Dallas is so fun that it sucks sometimes because you have to pay to have fun and pay to go to all these restaurants. And you go to, like, let's say you live in Florida. You did live in Florida.
Yeah.
You had the beach. You had the ocean.
That's true.
And we just have food. And it's like, North Italia, though. 10 out of 10.
It's a very much eat and drink culture here.
Yeah.
Which is a problem for your wallet because there's no spots that are bad. Right. It's like every place you go to is good and you want to go back again to try it again or try a new dish.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but I have 12 other places that I need to go try because I've heard great things about this spot.
How long is your notes app where you have to go to?
Oh, it's insane. I ended up having to divide it up by like location. Oh, I have like Deep Ellum, Uptown,
that's smart.
Lower Greenville, like up north, like Plano area, out like downtown. Like I have it divided by location because I'm like, okay, if I'm in one of these spots, then I know
to go there,
to go one of these areas. And if not, like the list is just endless.
Yeah.
And I say this to everybody. Every time I go out to cross one off the list, I add 2 more. Because I'll either hear something.
Really?
I'll either hear something or I'll pass by a place and be like, "Well, that looks cool. Let me add this to the list real quick." Like
it's impossible though to hit every single spot.
It is.
Like you won't.
I was trying so hard when I got here to like go to as many different places as possible. No, like I was just adding more. It was such a bad problem.
It's so terrible. Wallet. I mean, there's fun places in Dallas, but food is just like, I don't know, in my opinion, I'm like, you're going to eat it and you're just going to poop it out at the end of the day. So why don't we just move on?
I mean, you're not wrong with that.
Some people are so picky about where they eat. I don't get it.
I just want something good, and everything I've ate here is good.
Exactly. So like, why are you overcomplicating your life?
Yeah, I don't know. Some people are just super picky and
I know. I know. All my friends are so picky. They're like, I don't want to try this, or I'm like lactose intolerant, or I'm vegan. I'm like, okay, then why are you no, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
We'll cut that one in post.
I'm kidding, but there's just no reason to be picky is my point.
Yeah.
I get very flustered whenever people are picky about their food, but I am like the most picky eater. So I just like get nothing on it. Like a burger.
Just a plain burger.
Meat, cheese, and bun.
Ugh, you're missing out on all the goods on the burger.
Well, at least I'm not vegan.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Shout out to all you vegans out there. Christina and I are not fans of you guys. It's more burgers for the rest of us, though. So.
Have you heard that joke where it's like, for all the vegan lovers, just want to let you know that it's a really big mistake.
The puns. My sister will love that. She loves puns.
Really?
Yeah.
Puns are like a good one. What's your favorite one?
I don't know. I don't keep tabs of them. I'm not a big dad joke fan.
That's sad.
Or puns.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're kind of like cheesy. I think they're cheap humor.
Okay, you lactose intolerant guy.
Yes, yeah. I'm lactose intolerant to puns
To
and
cheesy
dad.
jokes.
Stop. Stop. That was actually really good.
That was so funny. I'm putting that in my notes app right now.
That's incredible. We just came up with that on the spot right there.
I'm not
That's the tagline for this episode.
cheesy jokes.
No, we're lactose intolerant for cheesy jokes. Wow.
Oh God. Okay.
Well, this has been a fun episode. And we're getting a little bit close on time. But before we wrap up, Christina, two things I want to ask you. One thing I ask all my guests when I have them on is, are you happy today?
Yes. Yes. I think happiness takes a while for it to for you to fully understand, but absolutely. I would say there are things in my life where I wish they were different, but it would be silly for me to wish for things that aren't in the Lord's plan, which has been awesome. So yes, I am happy, and you find happiness in the small things, and in the grand scheme of things, that's what really matters. So yeah.
That's good. So well said. You're so mature, so wise.
Yeah, I read my Bible a lot.
Yeah. All right.
I'm kidding.
Goody two shoes over here. What book are you reading right now?
Malachi.
Malachi.
Only because you want to know why.
Why?
Actually, I'm not really I read a little bit about Malachi, but I was a messenger for a little bit, and I say that because one of my friends told me to communicate this to one of my other friends, and I was like, okay, what am I, modern day Malachi? I can't be doing this right now. And I was like, wait, have I read a little bit about Malachi? And I hadn't, so I'm now reading it because it came from a joke. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It talks a lot about just communication, which is awesome. So
yeah, I'm in 2 Samuel right now, reading back through David about his life. So
my man David, he's crazy.
he is. I forgot all the details that happened, especially early on in his life in 1 Samuel. But yeah, it's been good. So the last thing I wanted to ask, this is kind of your chance, but if there's anything else you kind of wanted to touch on real quick or share in the last few minutes, and this can be anything. This can be faith. This can be life. This can be food. This can be two-stepping.
I'll ask you this, and it can be really short, but
Ask
I think
me.
it would be interesting to ask you, in your perspective, living in Dallas for almost a year? Almost a year. Cool. What do you wish Dallas had different, in the sense of not necessarily faith-based, but if it could be, obviously go for it, but what do you wish Dallas offered differently? And I'm not talking about nature, because obviously exactly where you moved to.
Yep.
There is not a dang ocean around. What would you change?
So I can't use nature?
No.
If we could turn down the heat a little bit, at certain times, that'd be great.
That's basically nature, Nick.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Dallas. I mean, I love.
Or where do you
Dallas
feel
so
you
much.
lack of in Dallas?
I mean, it's the nature. That's the one.
You
thing.
really think that is?
That's literally my only complaint when it comes to Dallas. The food's amazing, the people are great. I think it's a much better environment to live or grow a family because the people are better. Yeah. There's a huge faith influence here in Dallas, which to me is super important.
Right.
And I guess one thing that I would love, I've never had this before, but it'd be really cool if there was a faith-based place to go to during the week to hang out.
A coffee shop?
More than a coffee shop, and not a restaurant. So think of almost like a
library,
a warehouse type of deal.
A warehouse for Christians?
but it's got the same atmosphere of a restaurant, coffee shop, lounge area type of deal.
Like Watermark Coffee Shop?
Yeah, but more than that, because it's so small and there's only so much you can do there.
Okay.
I want a place where I could go sit on a couch, hang out with my buddies, go not to the bar, but get a soda water or something, and just hang out and just do something an arcade or something like that. And even if it was maybe this is $1 billion idea, but a subscription thing, like you subscribe to this, but it's like clean fun,
Clean fun.
like where you're not in, where you get to like do all that stuff
Yeah.
like that the world like presents you with, like going out and drinking and eating and partying and all that, but you get to do all that in a safe space where there is no access to any of that.
So it sounds like you just need to start hosting more.
I do.
You probably just need to like create that yourself.
Yeah, I've thought about it.
You got a place. You got
And
a house. You
for
gotta do
now.
it.
For now, I do. Yeah.
No, that's actually really awesome because I've thought about that as well too. It's like, yeah, it's great going on like coffee shops but like people are there for work.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to like a restaurant, people are there to just eat. So like kind of like that happy ground of like still vibey, but still kind of like it really truthfully would have to just be someone's house.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit like essentially if you get an establishment like that, speaking from like a real estate point, like where is the revenue on that?
Yeah.
Like it probably would be a subscription.
Yeah. Has to
But
be.
maybe you just need to host it yourself.
You got a bigger house. So.
I know. I'm a big hoster, so I need to start doing something of like having worship nights or Bible studies. I think that again, it goes to that point of like, why am I so hesitant when like people can do that and get killed for it across the world? So I don't know. We'll call it the Holy House.
I like that. The Holy House at Christina's. I'm
That'd
for
be
it.
perfect.
Well, Cristina, I really thank you for taking the time to speak to everything that God's done in your life and share a little bit about your story, and hopefully it'll inspire others. And yeah, I think it was a great conversation. So.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I can't believe that I did. This is awesome. No, this is awesome. Just being able to share and having a place to do that is awesome.
Yeah.
On a platform.
We'll we'll definitely do this again sometime. So
talk about two-stepping next time. How about that?
yeah, we'll go into two-stepping. We're gonna have to go, that way we can reflect on it.
Right.
How bad how rusty I am, and
maybe you just need to do a vlog out there.
Yeah, we'll do a vlog next time. A vlog of the two-stepping. So with that wraps up today's episode. Feel free to check out the show at Drafted Pages Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, as well as on YouTube and Spotify. And we will see you all next week.
Bye.